Hey everyone, we are here. We are here. We are on the eve of the week that I've been talking about for a long time, astrologically and metaphysically. And so I wanted to kind of have a nice heart to heart with everyone here and kind of go over where we're at right now. Okay. So, why this week isn't normal. Okay. We know that we have an eclipse tomorrow, a ring of fire eclipse that's going to be happening in Aquarius. That's also on the Chinese Lunar New Year, which is changing from the year of the snake to the year of the fire horse. Now, we already know kind of some of the symbolism here of going from shedding things like a snake does into a fire horse kind of energy, like volatility, speed, revolution, ignition type energy. And this is kind of happening at the same time as bigger planetary shifts have been going on. Okay, so we get two sets of eclipses a year, and there are always times when things pivotal happen. Okay, and then in 3 days after the eclipse tomorrow, we have the Saturn Neptune conjunction at the 0 degrees of Aries, called the world point. It's kind of like a genesis point. Okay, and you take kind of what a genesis point means. It's like raw new beginnings. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Pisces was the last sign of the zodiac. We've had outer planets transiting Pisces since like for the last 20 years. So there's been a certain murky, dreamy state that this whole planet's been in one form or another. And that's changed. Saturn went into Aries on Friday last week. And so the accountability's here, but the exact conjunction of the Saturn Neptune won't happen until Friday. Okay, now Neptune dissolves illusion. Saturn crystallizes reality. It brings truth. Okay, and if you have attachments to things, Saturn can bring suffering because those attachments get taken away. And so, institutions, built on a narrative instead of structure, okay, those are going to fracture. False idealism, okay, there's going to be consequences now to all this. There's a dream that's ending, and discipline has to come in and confront the dream. And that's what we're seeing. So you add Aries energy, it's, accountability through action. It's ruled by Mars. It's an active fire sign. So anything that's reckless, ideologies, anything is going to be exposed. Leadership myths are going to be challenged. And then, the really big thing is who's in charge, okay? That's going to become visible. Now, we're already seeing this stuff, okay? Reality checks are going to start happening. Now, let's look at the current events that we have right now, okay? Institutional trust eroding, leadership instability, economic narrative stress versus what we're living and experience. So let's just talk about those three for a second, okay? Doesn't matter what country you're in right now, there's some institutional trust eroding, okay? Look at the meetings at the EU and this week or this past week, what's still going on. We're seeing leadership instability. We're seeing our leaders on camera completely exposing their lack of information and geography knowledge. We're seeing a lot of infighting and instability in China right now that we don't get a lot of information about. We know that Russia is struggling economically. We know that the EU is struggling. We know that Latin American countries are struggling. We know a lot of institutions that are cracking already. Now, leadership instability, we're also seeing a lot of leaders and a lot of high-profile government officials, especially in Europe, so far are resigning or getting corruption charges due to the list that has been released. I won't give names of to what name list that was, but that'll continue. okay? And it's continuing to come out, okay? The illusions are dissolving. What's happening also in that list that people are understanding and realizing? Some very old bloodlines, some very old rituals and traditions that are freaking out a lot of people, because as a society, as a global society, we've been kept in the dark about a lot of long-standing traditions that are very inherently evil. And so these things are coming to the surface as well. Now, what are we already watching dissolve? What else is yet to dissolve? What narratives are just not going to hold their weight anymore? Okay, whatever the narrative on all the immigration and ice fights, and it's not just in America, this is stuff happening in Europe as well. How is that going to continue? When's the accountability going to surface? I know that that's been a big question with a lot of people, especially with this list. And when are these people going to be held accountable? Okay, we're now in that energy. Now, what could transpire this week? Okay, we've got probably, and this is what happens with eclipses all the time. All right, we could have a leadership shakeup. Okay, that could be due to a death, a scandal of some kind, a fight of some kind. We could see policy reversals. All right, we could see exposures of more hidden financial or institutional weakness. We could just see an escalation of events that we've already been watching. Okay, but also more sobering consequences from the actions. Now, the other big thing that we haven't talked a lot about is weather anomalies and sudden geophysical disruptions. So think about this. If you've been watching anybody like Stefan Burns, who's a geophysicist and has been monitoring and talking about the solar activity and the corresponding geophysical activity as it relates to the Schumann resonance, as it relates to earthquakes and volcanoes, there's a lot happening, especially in the last week, okay? There are a diminishment of earthquakes. There was a highly charged set of energy coming from the sun from a huge coronal hole that is spanning over 500,000 miles. We've been watching just this week, and I think just today, they've announced a CME, a coronal mass ejection, that is now shooting towards us and will probably hit us within the next 72 hours. So I'm expecting, and so are these experts, that we're going to see an increase in volcanic and earthquake activity this week. So a lot of the prophecies that talk about like a rift opening, and 1 minute a city is there or a nation is there, and then the next minute it's not. Okay, there are things that are being set up that could have this as a possibility. Now, what else? We're seeing a lot of strong rhetoric. We're seeing a lot of buildup around Iran right now with military. We're seeing rapid corrections being made. We think something's going to happen and then it doesn't. And then we see why, but we don't know the whole story. Okay, remember I was telling you before, there's a lot happening behind the scenes for the last month or two. All of this is going to start coming out in the open now. All of it. And really, the energy of an eclipse is going to be ignition or collapse or sobering. All right. And I said this in another video. The last eclipse we had to do with Charlie Kirk. And that was sobering. That was pivotal. And we're watching the effects of that eclipse event still coming forth and unfolding. So we do have increased solar flare activity. We do have auroras happening at lower altitude or lower latitudes. We have geomagnetic instability right now, and it's mirroring a collective nervous system instability. Okay, so there's a metaphysical layer to this energy shifting as well. We have nervous systems recalibrating, sensitivity spikes, ears ringing, sleep disruptive, emotional volatility. So people have been mentioning in general and to me that they feel like something is coming. I went to a men's group last week and listening to every one of the stories of what's going on in their lives, the challenges, what they're having to deal with. The common pattern I saw in all of it was something's got to give. And this is not just individually in all of our lives. This is collectively as well. Now, on an individual layer, we haven't talked a lot about this, but, if you've got planets in Aquarius, if you've got planets in Pisces, if you've got planets in Aries, depending on any of these events, all of this transit activity with these planets and all of these special configurations and aspects happening between them, depending on what sign, which means what house it is in your chart, some people, there's not a lot happening right now. Other people, the hugest shifts are happening in their lives. Okay. Now, on an individual level, I've been going through the same thing. All right. I've been shedding all sorts of stuff. It has not been easy. It's actually been very stressful, but I've learned a lot and I understand why, because I have this level of perspective. But for me, this has been going on all the way to now. There is still things that I'm having to let go of, and they're difficult, and it's been hard, and it's becoming accountable for this new reality and how to move forward with these things off my shoulders now. So I've been having to ask questions that everybody should be asking right now. What have I been avoiding lately? Where have I been avoiding reality? Where have I romanticized something unstable? Meaning that it's unstable, but I've been avoiding that and addressing it and doing something about it. And why am I doing that? Where must I initiate things cleanly? That's this Aries new energy here. What illusions, am I ready to outgrow? And what action requires me to be mature on another level of maturity now about this? So, Aries is personal sovereignty. Saturn is there to help us act responsibly. Neptune is about acting authentically. And all of this together is about integrity and action. So think about what's going on the planet. Think about what's going on in your own individual lives. Where there's structure in your life that's real, it's going to hold. Anything built on a narrative will now not hold. It will fracture. It will dissolve. It will crack. Because accountability and integrity and not having any more tolerance for these narratives is the new world order now, in a sense. I shouldn't have even said that word. I'm sure YouTube is going to do something with this video. But this is not like the end of the world. This is not that. This is the things that are illusions collapsing. That's what this is about. Now, the fire horse layer of this is going to come in quick. It's going to come in volatile. It's going to have strong personalities. Independence is going to be surging in various ways, individually, collectively, globally. There's also a resistance to control. Mars does not like to be controlled, okay? It's also rebellious energy. So things are going to get a lot wilder, a lot more fiery, a lot more unstable. But there can be, in a sense, controlled burns if you can be disciplined and be accountable for the actions that you're taking. Otherwise, it's a wildfire. It's out of control. So this week, as far as I've been thinking, is going to be something that is going to produce something so spectacular of an event or a happening that it really kind of puts the bow on this great ontological shock that we've kind of been moving through over the last year and a half. Now, this isn't like, oh, these things are going to happen this week and that's it. This is really the thesis statement for the next couple of years. Really, Saturn's trip through Aries, 2.5 years, is going to be the reality hitting of it all. Okay? So 2026 through 2027 and into 2028, it's going to be more defining than just this week. Okay? This is, like I said, this is a thesis statement of a huge longer chapter that we're coming into, a new age, a new era. Okay? And again, we're not watching the end of something. We're watching, again, the removal of what was never structurally sound. And what was not structurally sound is bigger than 90% 90+% of the population of this planet's understanding. There's such a gap between what's really happened on this planet and our true history of humanity and the history of our civilization. There's more to that than most people realize. And nobody's been able to put it all together because it's been so fragmented and so kept secret for so long that there's such a gap between how we view our history and how it really was. And then on top of that, the amount of work and effort these bloodlines and these governments, especially in the last 100 years, have put things in place and have advanced secrets and technologies and capabilities that we're also not aware of. There is a huge gap between what we know as mass human consciousness and what really has been going on. And this is what, to me, is going to be kind of the veil lifting on over the course of these next few months. So, yeah, the pressure's been building, and you're not alone. I'm in it too. It's been intense. And so I'm really hoping that this week can give us some new perspectives, some new ways to see how things have been happening in our lives and how to move forward. And so we're all in this together, and I hope this video wasn't too long. Part of my suffering and my issues is I have to move this channel off of this email address that's on this channel, and I'm finding it pretty much almost impossible to deal with. I can't even talk to somebody at YouTube about this. So if anybody knows how to help move a channel that I need to move so I don't lose all of you subscribers, all you wonderful people that have been following me, if anybody knows how to help, yeah, let me know. Let me know in the comments. And I'm also free for private consultations and sessions. And I know that that's probably something I've seen a huge uptick in that myself. So I know this is the time that people are seeking some truth, some perspective. So I'm always available for personal sessions if that's something that you need. So reach on out. And again, I have this monthly analog newsletter called the Resonance Papers. Now, March is coming up, and I'm going to have to cut off the subscriber list probably by the 23rd of February, and that's coming up quick. So if you want to be on this monthly analog newsletter going forward into this new era, so you've got a field manual month by month of what's going to be happening energetically, sign up for this newsletter. The link will be in the description or the comments. Okay. All right, everybody. See you on the other side.